She's a duck's guts.
Welcome back to Clooney Garage. It's Fred here. Says so on the shirt. Look at this. All the merch from Clooney Garage. Frankie, what's going on today?
No merch for me, unfortunately, but we've got some little surprises.
Ooh.
So the poor old ute has the world's worst suspension in it, FE2, that's non-operable. And so we've splashed out and got ourselves something half decent.
Well, Father Christmas has come at Easter time, Frankie. Oh my God, look at these. Now, why have you chosen BC Racing? They're obviously not a big mainstream shock that, or coilover assembly that we see normally on YouTube. So why have you gone with these?
Not a lot of people have got them in Commodores that I've seen, but it's quite a well-known brand, especially in the US. A lot of cars have these, European cars, and they're quite competitively priced, and not at the budget end, certainly not Mr. Max Peeding or XYZs, but yeah, a very nice looking shock absorber.
Right.
And
oh geez,
we didn't get the base model. You've chosen the one with the little reservoir on the bottom, which adds a little bit of weight but gives us a bit more oil capacity.
A braided line there too, Frankie.
Oh yeah, very beautiful, aren't they? And there's the adjustment for damping.
Well, that looks like a front, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that'd be right. We've got to assemble them ourselves and get the a new bush and the cap that sits on top of that and put them together. So we'll show you us doing that.
Righto. And difference between VE and VF shocks, Frankie, as we know, is that gauge is slightly different. So don't
ask us how we know that.
No, you don't want that. No good. That would not be magic. So what do you got there? That's the rear.
I think the rears are the same for VE, VF,
yeah.
But don't quote me on that one. But once again, it's got this little external reservoir, which they've got a nice little billet clamp, aluminium anodized clamp there.
They definitely look like they're well assembled. I've read that they're Japanese components but assembled in Taiwan, so we're not talking about, as you mentioned, Max Peedings or our friends at XYZ, but these look pretty good.
They do look very nice. I'm sure they're going to work like 10,000% better than our factory FE2, which is totally worn out.
I think so.
But so this obviously needs its top little mount as well, and we'll get that out of the car. All
right, let's get busy. All right, Frankie, so the first step in coilovers is getting the old shocks and springs out. So first steps here.
We have four 15mm bolts holding the top of the shock in here. So undo those four. We see one coming out anytime soon. They're fairly long.
They are long.
Of course. There's one of them.
Yep.
And we want to undo the shock mount there. And this...
that one's good fun, that one.
This control arm mount here. They're 18s. So undo both of those.
And what order? So shock tower first?
Yeah, I'll undo the shock first. Get this one, all the weight will be sitting on it, and then wiggle her out.
Yeah.
That'll give you enough so you can pull the control arm down, get the top of the shock out and drop her out. Of course, if you've got the standard spring, it's a bit longer. It's a little more difficult, but lowering springs, it's quite easy. And
safety first, Frankie. We're getting a few comments on you losing your legs, but I can see...
Yeah, we've got a jack stand. The jack's still under it.
Yeah.
So safety first, as always.
Safety first.
In your garage.
You betcha. All right, Frankie, so you've got your shock out. What are you doing here?
You just need to remove the top bolt, because we're going to reuse this top mount on our coilover. And usually with your longer spring, there's a fair bit of tension there, so you'd have to use your spring compressors. But there's not any preload on these springs, so we can just undo it by holding the middle of the shock shaft and undo the little 18mm bolt there.
Righto. Yeah, and if you got your standard spring and shock assembly, that would have to be, might be a bit dangerous, Frankie, but you get that washer off.
There's a wiggle!
Woohoo!
So off she comes. That's the bit we're going to reuse.
Yep.
And we can chuck all this stuff away.
This looks like high performance, Frankie.
Very high performance.
I think we might need to reuse that bit too.
We do. Yep. We'll grab that one.
All good. Let's keep going. All right, Frankie, so you've got your BC Racing rear coilover. What are you doing here?
All right, you notice this one has R, and we guess that means for right.
I'd say so.
And so then this little reservoir needs to face towards the back.
Yep.
And our spring perch needs to face this way.
Oh, yes.
That way?
Yep.
No. That way.
Yep.
Yep, that way. So we just need a little bit of preload. So we're going to wind this this little collar up till we just have it snugged up.
And to do that, you just separate your little holding collar and then wind that one up.
And up she goes, and until we've just got enough preload. Difficult to do this with one person, but
All right,
we'll wind it up to get a little bit of preload on there, and then we can shove her in.
All right, let's keep going. All right, Frankies, you've been using your little BC Racing spanners there, haven't you?
Lovely. So what we've done is we've just put a little bit of preload on to hold the spring in place against the perch up the top there. Tighten up our lock ring, making sure that this is facing towards the rear and that's in the right position. We can always adjust a little bit once we get her in the car.
That's what we did on the other side too, because you got to obviously get that oriented around the right way to get your bolt through.
Yeah, now the hard bit.
Oh, let's go to it. So Frankie, this next bit's going to be interesting because we need 2 people. So we're going to jam that shock tower up into where it needs to go, and that needs 2 people because one of us has to push that down.
One's got to pull this control arm down so we can get into place.
Yep.
Just start these 4 bolts here, let it hang, and then stick the bottom in place. And then start fighting with this.
Get onto the problem children. All right, so Frankie and I, we're going to have to get busy on this one, and we don't have any other filming, so we'll be back in a second. All right, Frankie, so when you've got those 2 bottom control arm bolts in, you can start tightening up the top, yeah?
Yeah, just left them a little bit loose so we had some wiggle room.
Yep.
Just make sure our reservoir doesn't foul on the control arm here, so it's in the right spot, we hope. And our spring seems to be sitting in there properly.
Very nice.
A little bit of preload.
Yep.
This guy was reasonably easy.
It was this time, wasn't it?
Maybe it was because you were doing it and I wasn't.
Oh, I think 2 hands make a lot of effort. And I think the good thing is if you do have dramas, you can stick an Allen key or something through the other side.
Yeah, just guide it, eh?
Guide it and then put your bolt and go through and chase it. That's what we're doing here at Clooney Garage, paint and panel. All right, Frankie, so I tell you what, this is a hell of a lot easier, isn't it, than our last time. So you've got all that in. And I think, as Frankie may have mentioned, these external reservoirs, make sure your braided line's not touching. And I think we've got a big gap in there, Frankie.
Good enough, yeah.
Yep. Oh, well, that's what we have to do. We have to tighten that collar up.
Yep.
We'll do that. And you've got your special little spanners to do that. And then I think you do that by hand, then tighten it. Then I think we check the ride height, because then we can always adjust the spring height as well. And I think we're ready to put some wheels and tyres on, Frankie. And what do you reckon?
Can't wait to have a little drive around with this sort of posh suspension.
Oh no.
Not used to that at all.
We won't know ourselves. It'll be magic. All right, let's get started. Magic. Well, Frankie, so the rears are done. A lot easier than what we thought, just quietly. So yeah, that's all good. So you're just going to put those directional nittos on.
Yeah.
And
I think because we had gotten rid of our standard springs the first time, it's so much easier to get lowered springs out.
Yeah, but, exactly.
Yeah, and we've been there before, haven't we?
Otherwise, we'd be using spring compressors and God knows what sort of nonsense. All right, so this is part 1. Part 2, we're going to get the fronts on. And the fronts are a little bit different because you need to reuse some other bits. So I'll show you a look what we're talking about here. Here's our old nungers. Catch you later. All right, so at the fronts, we actually have to reuse the top rubber mount, and we're actually going to get some polyurethane ones from Super Pro. So, because we're going to go race around the track using these old cracked top mounts, and then we'll get our fronts in. But these fronts look absolutely gorgeous, don't they? Very exotic. We're just super lucky here at Clooney Garage. So, huge shout out to BC Racing, and Jap Imports are the actual place that you get these from. So on that note, I'm going to get editing, get this video up there so you guys can see it, and then probably next weekend. When do those top rubber mounts come in, Frankie?
Well, our friends from Super Cheap are bringing those in, they reckon, any time this week. So that probably means next week.
That means next week we get the fronts on. Don't do it for Dale, do it for Brocky. Catch you later.